The Naka is a quiet, reclusive man, as most Nakas are. It's an unclean job. No one wants to be close to a Naka longer than they need to. Living in a hut just outside town, Silas had been happy to stay away from others for most of his life. He didn't need company, just food on his table and the peace of the surrounding woodland. People were uncertain, dangerous, and he was happy enough to stay away from them. That was, at least, until one stormy evening in autumn. He trundled along the road in his old cart, carrying 2 culled sheep from the farmer's flock to be processed. The rain was light when he'd set off, but now it battered him and soaked his clothes entirely. The warmth of his cottage couldn't arrive soon enough. His focus broke as he passed by a cottage on the edge of town. A man lived there, one who did odd jobs for others now and then. He'd only been in the village for a year or two. The farmer had mentioned that he hadn't been seen for a while, that the townsfolk were going to check his home in the morning. He was a drunk, and an unpleasant one at that. Most assumed he'd wandered into the woods or run away from his debts, maybe collapsed somewhere out of sight. But, as Silas passed by the house, a peculiar scent met his nostrils. One he knew well. The smell of death reached him even through the petrichor of the rain. It seemed a few days old, maybe longer, but it was unmistakable. Human death, bitter and cloying. He almost ignored it, turned his focus back to reaching the warmth and the safety of home. But as he trundled past, he found his eyes locked to the house. After a long, quiet moment, he pulled his old nag to a stop under a tree. She complained, but she waited. As he approached the front door of the small cottage, the smell quickly got worse. A kind of sickly sweet rot that clings to your nose and mouth like foul honey. He hesitated again at the door, knuckles resting on the wood. Silas knocked 3 times. Nothing. Another 3 times. Nothing. He exhaled deeply and looked back towards his cart. Then he pushed the door ajar. It was unlocked. Odd. Inside, it was dark. The hearth was cold and empty. It took his eyes a moment to adjust. When they finally did, the corpse came into view first. It lay in the middle of the floor, framed by a halo of dried blood, browned with age, the source of the ungodly stench. Moving closer, Silas noticed the small iron cauldron toppled over by his head. It looked like someone had hit the man with it. Many times. He turned to the open door. So much for the warmth of home. He'd need to fetch the townsfolk, and then someone would have to ride for the bailiff in the morning. A murder would need to be handled properly, after all. In the doorway, the Naka gave a final glance to the rest of the room. His eyes swept the sparse furniture and the cluttered dirt floor. Something glinted in the dark. Focusing, he realized it came from a heavy wooden trunk. The lid was open, only a sliver, and something inside was shimmering back at him. He took a few steps towards it, and then he froze. 2 pale blue eyes were watching from within, shining in the light from his lantern. He watched back for a time, unsure what to do. The rain dripped steadily from the leaky roof, and thunder growled in the distance. Then, after a long and unsteady silence, he finally found the nerve to walk forward. Gently, he lifted the lid of the trunk. The girl was small, so thin and frail he thought she might shatter if he touched her. She looked about 10, maybe 11, but it was hard to tell in the dark. The same dry blood that stained the floor of the hut covered the front of her dress and clung to her hands and arms. He couldn't see any open wounds on her, though. It didn't look like the blood was hers. What he could see was an array of familiar bruises on her skin. Her arms and neck and legs all decorated with marks. They were different colors, some old, some new. A clear handprint grasped one of her forearms. She hardly responded to the stranger in her home. Instead, her eyes were focused keenly on the corpse behind him, still gleaming in the dim light. She shivered in the cold. Silas only needed a few moments to put the pieces together. He knew these patterns. He'd worn them once. As these thoughts clicked into place, his plan changed. He reached towards the open chest. The girl hesitated at his outstretched hands, but after a moment, she reached to meet them. He pulled her up onto the floor of the hut. Then he turned to look about the house. A cloth clung to the edge of an upturned table. It was clean enough. He held it out through the doorway for a moment, enough for it to soak up some of the rainwater that now fell in a torrent. Then he returned to the girl, still frozen in place and shivering in the cold. She didn't react as he held the cloth out towards her. He hesitated again, then slowly moved it to her face. He wiped away some of the blood there, then held the cloth out to her again. More silence, but this time she seemed to understand. She took the cloth and began to clean her arms and face, her hands shaking with every movement. In the meantime, Silas got to work on the rest of the cabin. It was over an hour later when they finally left that stifling place. The old knacker returned to his cart, a heavy weight slung over his shoulder, wrapped carefully in a bedsheet, tied snugly with rope. The rain soaked through his tunic quickly, settling against his skin with an icy embrace. A little way behind him, a small figure draped in the knacker's weathered cloak followed. From beneath the cloak, two thin, barefooted legs pattered against the rain-soaked earth. He hefted the body onto the cart beside the sheet. Then he turned to the small figure that tailed him and lifted her onto the seat of the cart. He spared a moment for his horse, soaked and displeased from waiting in the rain so long. He held her muzzle in his gnarled hands and whispered thanks, and then, without a word, he climbed aboard the cart, and together they set off towards home.